Hey guys, I'm here at Detroit Guitar in Michigan on the Guitar Store Tour, and this place has insane guitars. I'm gonna pick up 5 of them and show you 5 different finger style techniques, whether it is a rhythmic kind of plucking style or something else entirely. So with this one, you have 3 layers. The first layer is simply 1, 2, 3, 4. And you use the inertia from the slap to roll that thumb down. After you have this down, you can add in 2 extra hits. And that is simply a pluck with the index and middle finger and the thumb. So you can just practice that. And you can do it without any notes. And you can use that as a percussive element, like I was doing here. Or you can actually have some notes happening there. And you can get really creative with it and add eighth notes or triplets. So I'm adding those triplets, again, kind of a percussive technique, not actually fretting any notes, with my thumb, index, and middle. So instead of that last one would be a triplet eighth note into 2 eighth notes. And then when you speed it up, it can get really funky. So with this kind of John Mayer gun slinger approach, it's really all about the thumb and index finger in this real kind of I don't care what's happening as long as my fingers are in the right place kind of motion. You can get pretty careless with it and not articulate all the notes. Or you can be a little bit smaller with the motion and be a little bit more delicate. So it's really about the flick of your wrist when you're doing this to establish whatever mood you're going for. So the motion by itself is so I'm opting to kind of flick my index finger out from this pocket of my hand. And that gives it that downbeat, that percussive groove. And it also allows me to target the more percussive strings that are acting as kind of the snare in this pattern. And having that bass drum going kind of 4 on the floor style is what keeps this momentum happening. So this is a variation of one of the previous patterns I showed you. We're just using a little piece of that and we're swinging it. And this one is really almost just as much about what's happening in the fretting hand as the picking hand, because we have these little voicings. I call them root third seven voicings because they're made up of a root, a third, and a seventh. In this case, it's a dominant seven. So just this little, and in between those, we're just going quarter notes. And every now and then, and depending on how you vary those two, you can come at them together, or you can have them on the offbeats. We can have something going like this. Really whatever you want depending on what chord you're playing. So if we just start simply with just this B flat 7 chord and this E flat 7 chord, I'll just go ahead and start simply and show you how busy you can get. So that would be kind of over the top, but when you combine it with a walking bass line, it can get really groovy and jazzy. And then if you speed it up, this one's kind of a galloping technique with a sort of a triplet feel, but you can think of it as 3/4 time. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And you can put any chords here, so the motion is thumb, index, middle, ring. And then we have this pluck that we've been noticing in all these patterns. And then that third kind of meat of your palm is what's creating the downbeat. And then we have our traditional thumb and whatever fingers you want to put here. You can break it into 2 different parts. 3 and then 2, or 2 and then 3. And of course you can speed it up as with all these. this one, we're going to go actually to a drop D tuning because this technique is kind of dependent on a droning note, and it has a lot to do with the dexterity of your picking hand because you have to get out of the way of that droning note. It's more of a philosophy of playing melodically with this droning note happening, so you can really treat this like that jazzy one where there isn't a right or wrong place to put in the droning bass note. The point is to kind of be musical with it, but always try and have that note ringing. So this would be an example of me kind of messing up. You can hear how much falls out when that note isn't ringing. And this is a great way to actually learn scales. So if we wanted to play like D Lydian, again, see how much drops out of there. So that would happen if maybe your index finger would hit against that note. See how it can kill it. So this is really an exercise in both hands, particularly the fretting hand, because of how careful you have to be to keep that note ringing. So you see guitar players like Steve Vai or Joe Satriani do this on electric guitar, but it's particularly cool on acoustic just because of the more organic sound, I guess. You can do it on single strings too. So when you feel yourself maybe run out of steam with those single notes, you hit that. So if you're ever in the Detroit area, particularly Birmingham here in Michigan, you have to come and check out Detroit Guitar. It is the coolest shop in the state. Take my word for it. Till next time, keep shredding.